The hotel restaurant stood tall and bright in the middle of the city, a place where soft lights mixed with quiet voices and every chair looked expensive even before someone sat on it. People came here to feel important, to enjoy calm moments away from noise and worry. Late afternoon sunlight passed through wide glass windows and rested gently on the tables. In that peaceful setting, a pregnant woman named Anna walked in slowly, holding her belly with one hand and her purse with the other. Her steps were careful, not weak, but thoughtful, like someone who had learned to listen to her body. Anna did not wear fancy clothes. Her dress was simple, clean, and comfortable. She did not wear jewelry that caught attention, and she did not look around the room to see who was watching. She only wanted to sit, drink water, and eat something light. Her day had been long, and her back ached. She chose a small table near the window, where she could see the street and feel less closed in. Sitting down took effort, but she smiled softly once she settled, as if the chair itself had given her a small gift of rest. Across the room, a waiter named Leo noticed her. He had been working at the hotel for years and believed he understood people just by looking at them. In his mind, guests who mattered always looked confident and loud. They wore expensive clothes and spoke like they owned the place. Anna did not fit that picture. She was quiet, slow, and plain. Leo felt tired of his job and unhappy with his own life, and those feelings often turned into quiet anger. When he saw Anna, he decided she was someone who would not complain, someone easy to ignore. Leo walked over with a stiff smile and placed the menu on the table. The sound was louder than needed. Anna looked up at him and politely asked for a glass of water. Her voice was calm and respectful. Leo gave a short nod and walked away without a word. He did not rush. He did not care that she might be uncomfortable. He believed his time mattered more than hers. Anna waited, breathing slowly. She watched people pass by outside. Cars moved, signals changed, and life continued as usual. Inside, she tried to relax her shoulders and calm her thoughts. She had learned over time that silence was sometimes the safest choice. When Leo returned, he carried a glass filled to the top. As he reached the table, his hand tilted just enough. Water spilled over the edge and rushed across the table. It soaked the front of Anna's dress and dripped onto the floor. The moment felt sharp and sudden. Nearby guests turned their heads. A woman at the next table froze with her fork in the air. Leo laughed softly and muttered a rude comment about being careful. His tone made it clear that this was not an accident. Anna felt the cold water against her skin and the heat rushed to her face. Her hands shook as she picked up a napkin. She wiped the table first, then her dress. She did not cry. She did not shout. She focused on breathing and staying steady. The room felt heavy. No one spoke. Some people looked away, pretending nothing had happened. Others watched quietly but did not move. Anna slowly stood up, one hand on her belly, the other holding the napkin. She looked at Leo with calm eyes. There was no anger in her gaze, only disappointment. For a brief moment, Leo felt uneasy, but his pride pushed the feeling away. Anna reached into her purse and placed money on the table, paying for the water she never drank. She nodded once and walked toward the door. Her steps were slow but strong. Each step felt like effort, but she refused to rush. She walked out into the sunlight, leaving behind the quiet room and the people who chose comfort over kindness. Outside, the city felt loud again. Anna paused near the entrance and took a deep breath. She placed both hands on her belly and whispered softly, reminding herself that she was not alone. A black car pulled up, simple and clean. The driver opened the door, and Anna carefully sat inside. As the car moved away, her shoulders relaxed, and the weight of the moment settled in her chest. The car drove toward a quiet neighborhood where trees lined the streets and homes sat behind tall gates. Inside one of those homes, a man named Mark stood in the kitchen, preparing tea. His movements were calm and careful. He was a man who carried responsibility quietly. He did not show his success through loud words or expensive habits. Few people knew the full reach of what he owned. Mark had built a hotel empire over many years, starting from almost nothing. He believed deeply in respect, fairness, and service. When Anna entered the house, Mark noticed her immediately. He saw the damp fabric of her dress and the tired look in her eyes. He did not raise his voice or ask sharp questions. He walked toward her and gently took her hands. Anna tried to smile, but her face could not hide the truth. He guided her to the couch and handed her the tea. At first, Anna said it was nothing, just a small accident. Mark listened quietly. He knew her too well. He asked again, softly, and this time she told him everything. The hard menu, the waiting, the spilled water, the laugh, the silence of the room. Each word landed heavily. Mark did not interrupt. When she finished, he stood still for a moment. Then he looked out the window, his expression calm but firm. He told her that hotel was one of his. Not just any hotel, but a place meant to represent his values. Hearing this, Anna felt a mix of shock and sadness. She had gone there as an ordinary guest, and what she saw was not what Mark believed he had built. Mark promised her one thing. He would visit the hotel himself. Not in anger, not with noise, but with truth. He would see everything with his own eyes. Somewhere in the city, Leo ended his shift believing the day was normal, never knowing that his small act would soon bring consequences far greater than he imagined. The next morning arrived quietly, but inside Mark's mind, nothing felt calm. He woke up early and sat by the window, watching the city slowly come to life. Cars moved like lines of light, people hurried with coffee in their hands, and the world looked normal again. Yet Mark knew something was wrong beneath that normal view. What Anna experienced was not just a small incident. To him, it was a sign that something deeper had been broken inside a place he had built with care. Anna was still asleep when Mark left the house. He did not want to disturb her. He kissed her forehead gently and promised himself that whatever he did today would be done with clarity, not anger. He dressed simply, the same way he always did when he wanted to be seen as just another person. No security followed him closely. No announcements were made. He wanted to walk into the hotel as a guest, not as an owner. The hotel stood tall under the morning sun, glass shining, doors opening smoothly for guests. Inside, staff moved quickly, greeting people with practiced smiles. Mark walked through the lobby slowly, observing everything. He noticed small details that others ignored. A rushed greeting here, a forced smile there. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, but enough to make him uneasy. In the restaurant, Leo had already started his shift. He felt relaxed, almost proud. The day before felt like a small victory to him. He believed he had put someone in her place. He joked with another waiter while setting tables, acting confident and careless. The memory of Anna crossed his mind for only a second, and he brushed it away easily. Mark entered the restaurant and chose a table near the same window Anna had sat by. He ordered only water and watched. He watched how Leo treated guests who wore expensive suits. He watched how his tone changed when someone spoke loudly. Then he watched how Leo's face tightened when a quiet older woman asked for help with her chair. The pattern was clear. Respect was not given equally. The manager, a man named Paul, noticed Mark sitting alone and walked over with a polite smile. He asked if everything was fine. Mark nodded and asked simple questions about the restaurant, the staff, and training. Paul answered confidently, speaking about high standards and customer care. His words sounded right, but Mark felt the distance between words and truth. A little later, Mark asked casually about an incident from the previous afternoon. Paul paused. His smile faded slightly. He said he heard something small had happened but no complaint was filed. Mark nodded again, thanked him, and finished his water. He stood up calmly and asked Paul to gather the restaurant staff for a short meeting. Paul looked surprised but did not question it. When the staff gathered, Mark stepped forward. His voice was steady and quiet. He introduced himself, not with titles, not with pride, but with honesty. When he said his name, the room changed. Faces stiffened. Whispers stopped. Paul's expression drained of color. Leo felt his stomach drop. Mark spoke about the values of the hotel, about respect, about how every guest mattered regardless of appearance. He then spoke about a pregnant woman who had come in for a simple meal and left feeling small. He described the spilled water, the laughter, and the silence of the room. He did not raise his voice. He did not accuse anyone directly at first. He simply spoke the truth. Then Mark looked directly at Leo. The room felt heavy. Leo tried to speak, tried to explain, but his words tangled. He said it was an accident. Mark listened, then asked one simple question. He asked why no one helped her. Leo had no answer. Mark turned to the rest of the staff and asked how many guests had left feeling unseen because of silence. No one spoke. Some looked at the floor. Some looked ashamed. Paul stepped forward and took responsibility, admitting he should have acted. Mark nodded, accepting the honesty. Leo was dismissed from the restaurant floor that day. Not with shouting, not with public shame, but with a quiet decision that carried weight. Mark believed consequences mattered more when they were calm and clear. Training was ordered for all staff. New systems were put in place. Respect would no longer be a slogan. It would be practiced. Later that evening, Mark returned home. Anna was sitting on the couch, reading. She looked up and searched his face. He sat beside her and told her everything. He told her about the visit, the meeting, the changes. Anna listened quietly. When he finished, she placed her hand over his and smiled softly. She told him she did not want revenge, only fairness. Mark told her that fairness was exactly what he wanted too. Outside, the city continued as always, unaware of the shift that had just begun. And somewhere, Leo walked home alone, carrying a lesson he never expected to learn, realizing that the smallest choices can open doors or close them forever. Days passed after the meeting at the hotel, but the air inside the building felt different now, like a place that had been gently shaken and forced to wake up. Staff members moved with more care, not because they were afraid, but because they had been reminded that their actions carried weight. Training sessions filled the schedule, not rushed lectures, but honest conversations. People spoke about respect, about attention, about how silence could hurt as much as unkind words. Some listened with open hearts, others with quiet guilt, but everyone felt the shift. Leo stayed home during those days, sitting in a small room that suddenly felt smaller than ever. He replayed the moment in the restaurant again and again. At first, his mind searched for excuses. He told himself the woman was too sensitive, that work stress had pushed him, that no one had stopped him. But each excuse grew weaker with time. The memory of Anna's calm eyes followed him. She had not shouted or insulted him. She had simply looked at him, and somehow that look hurt more than any loud reaction could have. Leo began to realize something uncomfortable. He had enjoyed feeling powerful for a moment. Not real power, but the false kind that comes from making someone else feel small. That truth sat heavy in his chest. He thought about his early days at the hotel, when he had been nervous and hopeful, when kindness from a guest had once made his entire week better. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten that feeling. Meanwhile, Anna focused on her health and her peace. She spent mornings walking slowly in the garden, listening to birds and breathing fresh air. The incident still lived in her mind, but it no longer controlled her. She understood that pain did not always come from loud harm. Sometimes it came quietly, dressed as disrespect. She also understood that speaking her truth had mattered, even though she had not planned for it. Mark watched Anna closely, not with worry, but with deep respect. He admired her strength, the way she chose calm without surrendering dignity. He also felt the weight of leadership more clearly than ever. Owning buildings and businesses meant little if the values inside them failed. He began visiting other hotels quietly, listening to staff stories, hearing concerns that had been hidden under polite smiles. He learned that systems did not break loudly. They broke slowly, through small ignored moments. At one hotel, a young worker spoke about feeling invisible. At another, a cleaner shared how guests rarely looked at her face. These stories stayed with Mark. He realized Anna's experience was not an isolated moment. It was a mirror. And mirrors demanded action. Back at the restaurant, Paul worked harder than ever. He spoke with his team daily, not standing above them, but among them. He apologized openly for not stepping in that day. His honesty gave others courage to speak. One waiter admitted he had seen similar moments before but stayed quiet. A server shared that fear of losing a job sometimes felt stronger than doing what was right. These conversations were uncomfortable, but they were real, and real conversations had power. Leo eventually received a message asking him to return for a meeting. His hands shook as he read it. He expected anger, rejection, or final judgment. Instead, he was met with calm faces. Mark was there, not as an untouchable owner, but as a listener. Leo spoke slowly, admitting his mistake without defense. He spoke about his frustration, his pride, and his shame. He did not ask for sympathy. He asked for understanding. Mark listened and then spoke about responsibility. He explained that mistakes did not define a person, but patterns did. He offered Leo a choice. He could leave with a lesson and move on, or he could stay and rebuild trust through effort and change. Not as a reward, but as a chance. Leo felt something break open inside him. For the first time, someone had addressed his behavior without humiliation. He chose to stay. Rebuilding was not easy. Leo started again from the smallest tasks. He listened more than he spoke. He watched how guests responded to kindness, how patience changed the tone of a room. He learned to notice people instead of labels. Each day felt like a quiet apology, not spoken, but practiced. Anna returned to the restaurant weeks later, not because she had to, but because she wanted to face the place without fear. Mark did not walk beside her. He waited outside. Anna wanted to enter alone. When she sat at the same table near the window, Leo noticed her instantly. His heart raced, but he did not panic. He approached slowly, respectfully, and offered water with steady hands. His voice was calm and sincere. Anna looked at him and saw something different. Not guilt, not pride, but awareness. She nodded, accepting the glass. In that simple exchange, something healed quietly. No applause followed. No one needed to know. Some moments are meant only for those who live them. Outside, Mark watched through the glass as Anna lifted the glass and smiled softly. He knew then that real change had begun. Not because rules had been written, but because people had chosen to grow. The city moved on as it always did, unaware that inside one restaurant, a story of harm had slowly turned into a lesson of humanity. Time moved forward gently after Anna's return to the restaurant, not rushing, not forcing anything, but allowing change to settle into place the way sunlight slowly fills a room. The hotel continued its daily rhythm, guests arriving and leaving, staff working long hours, meals served and cleared, yet something unseen had shifted. There was more patience in small moments, more awareness in quiet exchanges. Respect had become a habit rather than a rule written on paper. Anna focused on preparing for the arrival of her child. Her days were filled with simple routines, slow walks, quiet music, and moments of rest. She thought less about the incident now, not because it had lost meaning, but because it had transformed. What once felt like a wound had become a reminder of her own strength. She understood that dignity did not come from power or status, but from how one chose to respond when faced with disrespect. Mark continued his work with a renewed sense of purpose. He held meetings not to command but to listen. He reminded his teams that a hotel was not just a building of glass and lights, but a place where human stories passed through every day. He spoke about kindness not as weakness, but as discipline. Slowly, his message spread beyond one property. Other managers began to change their approach, creating spaces where voices were heard before problems grew large. Leo carried his lessons with him every day. He no longer measured guests by appearance or tone. He learned that service was not about control, but about care. Some days were harder than others. Pride does not disappear quickly. Yet each time he chose patience, he felt lighter. He had learned that real strength was quiet, and that respect given freely returned in unexpected ways. Paul watched the team grow closer. Mistakes still happened, but they were faced honestly. When staff members supported one another, the work felt less heavy. The restaurant became known not just for its food, but for how people felt inside it. Guests noticed the difference. Reviews spoke of warmth and fairness. No one mentioned the past incident, but its impact lived on in every kind gesture. As Anna's due date approached, Mark stayed close, offering comfort without worry. They spoke often about the kind of world they wanted their child to grow up in. A world where people looked beyond surface judgments. A world where silence did not protect harm. They knew they could not change everything, but they also knew that small actions mattered. On a quiet evening, Anna and Mark returned to the hotel together. This time, not as owner and guest, but as two people sharing a moment. They sat near the window, watching the city lights come alive. Leo served them with calm confidence, his movements steady and respectful. Anna thanked him with a simple smile. It was enough. Outside, life continued as it always did. People hurried past the hotel without knowing the story held inside its walls. They did not know that a single act of disrespect had sparked reflection, change, and growth. They did not know that quiet courage had reshaped a space meant to welcome all. When Anna finally held her child for the first time, she felt peace. She whispered promises of kindness, fairness, and strength. Mark stood beside her, knowing that leadership began at home and extended outward. The story did not end with punishment or praise. It ended with understanding. With people choosing to see one another fully. With a reminder that the smallest moments can leave the deepest marks. And in that truth, something lasting was built.